Hey guys, today we're going to solve equations involving proportions. And a couple of things we need to talk about is what is a proportion, and to know what a proportion is we need to understand what a ratio is. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Now ratios can be written in many different forms, but in algebra we prefer to use the form of a fraction, which most people would call a fraction, something like, for example, 3 over 4. That is a ratio, or another word for it is a rational number. This is a rational number, and that's of course where ratio comes from, ratio. Okay, but there's also things as rational expressions, and something like this would be a rational expression. For example, x plus 5 over x, that would be a rational expression. It might have variables in the numerator and or denominator. So we're going to be dealing with algebraic proportions, which include algebraic ratios. Okay, the basic thing is, though, that we're talking about something that has a numerator and a denominator, and an integer, something like the number, say 5, also has both a numerator and denominator, but because the denominator is 1, sometimes that just we don't write it with 5 over 1. We would of course write it as the whole number, or integer 5. Okay. A proportion is a statement that two ratios are equal. And anytime we have a statement that two ratios are equal, that's when it's called a proportion. Something like this: 1/4 equals 6/24. And we would know that simplified. If I simplified 6 over 24, it's 1 over 4. This right here is the condition of saying that these two are equal, therefore a proportion. Cross products is our other thing that we're going to talk about and use today. Is cross products is something that is learned all the way down from 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. Here in algebra, we're going to use it in an algebraic sense, as we're going to use cross products to find the value of an unknown variable in a proportion. And again, a proportion is an equation. So essentially, we are just solving equations. Alright, here's a proportion, and this will be an algebraic proportion, an equation that has a variable in it. And the operation that's happening is we are multiplying. So cross products means really we're cross multiplying. And several students have learned this in past classes, but they don't know where it comes from. Just some teacher will say, just cross multiply, and don't ask why. I think there was some saying like that. But really where it comes from is the idea of simplifying fractions, which we've talked about in algebra before. In other words, if I want to get rid of the denominators 5 and x, I multiply by 5 and x. So as I distribute across the every term in the equation, what I would get is this first 5x times 3 over 5, the 5's would cancel, leaving me with 3x. And when I multiply it across to this side, the x's would cancel, leaving me with 5 times 4 is 20. And there we have a perfectly fine equation that we can solve. And that's why, notice that 3x plus 20, because that 3x plus 20 is something that we would get when we cross multiply. So here's how it's taught. X times 3 is 3x equals 5 times 4 is 20. Remember, that was the same thing as we got when we cleared the fraction. Okay. After we get it to this form, it's easy to solve. At this point, we divide both sides by the coefficient of the variable. That will make the new coefficient 1. That means x is alone, and we have a solution to our proportion. Okay? So let's go ahead and tackle a couple of easy problems. I'm sure everyone will be able to handle this fairly simply, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. X times 2 is 2x on the left. 9 times 5 is 45. Now we got rid of our denominators here. We have a perfectly fine equation to solve. We divide both sides by 2, which is the coefficient of x, now making the coefficient 1, so x is alone, and our solution is 45 over 2. There's my little animation. Okay, and this improper fraction is totally proper as far as I'm concerned in giving it as an answer. Okay. All right, we have another proportion. Why don't you give this one a try? Okay, noticing that this is a proportion. The reasons it's a proportion, this is still one rational expression on this side because this denominator is grouped. This is a grouping symbol right here, so it's saying that here's my denominator, and I can use cross products to solve this. We go ahead and cross multiply. 7 times 6 is 42, but now I have x minus 3 times 2. Remember, I'm multiplying 2 times this whole quantity, the whole denominator, so of course at this point we distribute. Now I have a simple two-step equation. I add 6 to both sides, divide by the coefficient 2, x equals 24. Okay, number 3, why don't you give this one a try? Okay, here again, just like the last problem, we're going to use cross products. And using the cross products, we have to remember that this again is grouped. So now when I go 4 times this, I'm saying 4 times the quantity x plus 3. 5 times 7 on this side. We distribute on the left side. Subtract 12. Divide by 4. Our solution is y equals 23 over 4. Okay. Go ahead and try this one. Okay, notice that on this problem, I have both numerators are the binomial, so I have a binomial, x plus 3 on this one, and 2x minus 1. So when we use cross products, we have to be careful with those. It's 2 times x plus 3 equals 5 times 2x minus 1. Notice what we are going to have to distribute on both sides. 2x plus 6 equals 10x minus 5. At this point, I have variable terms on both sides. I'm going to collect my variables on this side because I have a larger coefficient here. Just it avoids dealing with negative coefficients. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Okay, and now I'm going to add 5 to both sides to get my variable term alone. And now to get the variable alone, I divide both sides by the coefficient 8. Which will give me x equals 11 over 8. Okay. Go ahead and try this one. Okay, we're going to tackle this one again with cross products. And the only thing that you have to remember here is, again, it's going to be 3 times the quantity here. This is a binomial. Again, we distribute. Here, it's a fairly straightforward thing, but notice I have a variable term on this side and this side. So I'm going to decide which way I want to go with my variables. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. When I do that, I will get a negative 3x here. No problem. Divide both sides by negative 3, which will give me x equals negative 5. Okay. Number 6, go ahead and try that one. Okay, very similar to the last couple of problems. This is straight cross products here. Again, understanding that this is a binomial. So we do have 3 times y plus 2, so of course we will distribute. 2y times 16 is 32y. I'm going to subtract 3y from both sides. Now I have my variable term alone. The last thing I need to do is divide both sides by 29, which will give me my final answer of y equals 6 over 29. All right, thanks for watching.